What is up, card fighters? Welcome back to the Prime Vanguard channel. We'll be taking a look at my Baphormedes deck profile for the current format of Cardfight Vanguard. Now, Baphormedes does not get good until we receive the Grade 2 upgrade within the upcoming set of set 10 or 11, but this is a deck that I do thoroughly enjoy, and I know that I'm one of the head channels on keeping this deck alive, or at least upgrading for it, so I figured to give it another go. Now, since my last change to this deck, I made some major upgrades, fixing one of the deck's core problems, which has always been card advantage, and I think I've stumbled upon a couple of things that have definitely taken this deck to the next level and created a build that I didn't expect to see coming. Now, I'm really excited to showcase this build to you guys, but while you're watching, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as hit the notification bell so you guys are always seeing my newest videos coming out. Now, starting off with our ride line, I'm still playing the Diabolos ride line with Baphormedes. It's the best ride line you can do. There's no cost to it. It gets you soul, a draw, and then puts 3 cards back into your soul, which will be important for our other effects because they do count your soul as well as use soul blast. Now, there's no other sort of changes you can make. I tried the Rhino to get a free body under the board to make up for that issue, but it wasn't worth it because the soul went out, and the additional card draw from Richard is just too good to pass up on. Now, for our first grade 3, it is obviously the star of the show, 3 copies of our Hades, Lord of Hades Blaze, Baphormedes. Baphormedes right now is still an incredibly mediocre Vanguard, but one you can have fun with. You know, Dark States unfortunately doesn't have incredibly strong grade 3s on a generic level compared to something like Keter Sanctuary, even Bastion of that nature. Without strong generics just to make this deck better, or something like the new grade 2 or the grade 1 that we have in the deck now that specifically works for this playstyle, Baphormedes will always just continue to be a casually fun Vanguard. The new Festival Collection grade 3 is cool, but I'll spoiler, it's not in this deck because it doesn't do anything for any of the problems the deck has. Like, yeah, it gives you board removal, but it doesn't improve the strategy of Baphormedes, which is to power up your soul, make your Vanguard a strong center column, and take advantage of that 3-card guard, which is still incredibly difficult to guard with. As well as build up some card advantage to make up for that, and then push with your high grade 3 rear guard attacks. Unfortunately, those cards are very limited in Dark States, and I had to emphasize that while building this so that Baphormedes can work at its full potential. For my next grade 3, it is 2 copies of the Recite a Spell Dragon. Still one of the core grade 3s for this deck. This is how you're going to be able to continuously get more grade 3s from your drop zone into your soul while being able to acquire power, be a grade 3 target for Baphormedes, as well as be one of your higher powered attackers that boost up your resources. Next up, we have 2 copies of Causality Dragon, Crucial Dragon. Still one of the best generic grade 3s you can play. The defensive skills was the power-up skills, just too good to pass up on, combined with Baphormedes' defensibility. The control aspect of this card, being able to put another grade 3 into soul to boost that up, on top of Baphormedes' skill with these 2 grade 3s, immediately puts you at 3. The retire effect is good, as well as the last skill giving us some sort of like final game attacker if we're ever in a position to take full advantage of it to make it work to use the guard restrict. Next grade 3, we have the brand new Geneva. This is a generic grade 3 that came out about like a set or 2 ago. You use this card to go ahead and give you the option to boost or be a defensive unit. Depending on what you soul charge, you'll gain effect from it. But the good thing about this card is the fact that it does let you soul charge as well as gives you an offensive or defensive skill. Her biggest problem is the fact that her effect only works on place from hand. She would have had so much more synergy, would have been a bigger piece for this deck if that effect did not lock in from on hand. I don't know why they did that. But this is just one of the few cards you can use for your offense or defense plays, and it's a nice balancing piece to have when you're doing your offensive plays or setting up your formation. Next up, 1 copy of Time Jarrett Dragon to help cycle out those grade 3s from hand into the soul to get Baphormedes going. Next up, 1 copy of Gruesome Scythe Dragon. This is a really strong control card. Being able to retire an entire column is actually pretty big right now because a lot of decks, especially in this format, play without having to worry about getting interrupted. So having a card like this go ahead and clear out a column and slow down some of the attacks your opponent is throwing at you is a big deal, or at least knock off key pieces on the board. Last grade 3 I have is 1 copy of Hideous Cycler Dragon. Still one of the stronger offensive pieces you can get. This card can easily make magic numbers or help boost up your soul for more grade 3s under certain circumstances depending on what you soul charge, but it's completely free. It's a nice soul charger and it does something of value for this deck still. That was it for grade 3s. The grade 3s, like I said, in Dark States are not that good, so I've had to really emphasize on playing more of another card, as well as also playing cards to get put more grade 3s onto the board, which leads now to grade 2s that I can showcase for the deck. Now, the biggest helper for this deck and the major change that I had to incorporate was 3 copies of Famed Ablazing Demonic Lady Orient. Now in this deck, as well as every version of Baphormedes that I played, I've always emphasized the importance of the orders, your Regardless piece, as well as your 2 to 3 copies of Cage of Fury Star, which is a core card of this deck, to get those grade 3s back on board while soul charging. Since we do play orders and this deck needs those orders to work, I feel like Orions was a fantastic piece to have. Since the orders are at grade 3, you'll hold on to Orions, get her out on the board, use her effect, get another grade 3 onto the board, because you played order, get those cards on, and then you have her draw effect if you go second to boost your hand back up, while also doing all of your attack plays, combining your effects, your Baphormedes for a draw, another card for a draw, and her for a draw. It helps boost up your card advantage in every sense. It gives you a body on board, additional draw, and power, and because it's a grade 2, if you need to, you can call out in the early game just to strike back, because since we have ways of getting our normal units from Drop Zone into Soul and then use Cage of Fury Star, we're able to go ahead and call this card back out with an order later, take full advantage of her later in the game. She was the core piece that I didn't realize this deck was missing to make it work, but she's really needed. There's just no way I think of playing Baphormedes without her now, because everything is just too fast, and unlike when Baphormedes first came out, you just will not have the time to set up the 6 grade 3 soul play, do 3 attacks, really strong. The game, everything is too fast. Everything on the lower level is too fast, even for Baphormedes, which means that you need to keep up with that, and the only way to do that was Orions. And although our order isn't for grade 2 turn, having the grade 3 setup is just too good to pass up on. Now I'm playing a proxy for it because it is insanely expensive, but I'm using the Gear Chronicle proxy so people don't get confused, so that I can play 3 copies of Steam Gunner Tiskar. Now, this deck needs a cycler. As I've stated, card advantage is one of the biggest issues for Baphormedes because none of the grade 3s help incorporate card advantage, so I'm playing Tiskar and Orions to mitigate that issue. Our deck doesn't use energy for anything, therefore the energy cycler is just the best one to have. I was playing Laminia for months in this variation of Baphormedes, and she was good. She's a good card because she can get you, she's essentially like additional copies of Cage of Fury Star, but the problem with her is the fact that she doesn't work until you use up Soul, which is bad because we have effects that rely on Soul. And then on top of that, the additional call I felt like was cool, but this deck has a card advantage issue. Tiskar gives you a defensive card advantage, a write-up card advantage, and then later in the game, if you want to use her as a booster because maybe your formation is bad, that's cool too. So in a way, in every aspect, Tiskar will just end up being better. I think the Persona Shield cyclers, they would have the same problem. Yeah, they're good attackers, but they use up Soul, which again is not good because we have cards like Orions in the deck now that I've already showcased that use up Soul, and we have other effects that count the Soul that she uses as well. So Tiskar not taking up Soul, as well as being a piece that we can use at any period of the game, just like Laminia, made her better overall because she used a resource that we don't really use in the deck versus what Laminia did. And finally, 1 copy of our Ace unit, because we can only have 1 copy. This deck needs the Ace unit. This is one of the decks that relies on it. The additional superior calling, as well as the power up this card gets, it helps sets up just like Orions does. He has less restrictions on him. He uses energy, which again is a resource we don't utilize for this deck, making him one of the better cards to play to help set up your board later on in the game. Now moving on to grade 1s, I obviously have 3 copies of our Dark State Sentinel, 1 copy of our Elementaria. Next up, I play 4 copies of Exaggerate Draco Kid. Now, since I'm playing less main deck grade 3s in the deck, I had to up Draco Kid to a playset. It's just the best support piece that Baphormedes has. You can call it in the early game. It's a 10k shield of Baphormedes' effect, on top of the fact that it is a grade 3 unit within the Soul, as well as the fact that when placed, if you soul charge a grade 3, you can put any grade 3 from drop into Soul. So your orders like we're going to showcase later, you can put into the Soul to help set up with those. Outside of a card like Recite a Spell Dragon, only put normal units from drop zone into Soul. Don't know why they did that, to help set up for your later plays. It's the most important piece now in the deck, especially once we get the new grade 2 support, because we're going to have more early game cards that benefit Baphormedes compared to all the really bad stuff that we have right now. It had to be maxed out in terms of playset to get everything going, and it's just one of the best cards the deck has to offer right now in terms of resource management. For my next grade 1, it is 3 copies of Desire Devil Bubetsu. Anytime you play Baphormedes, Bubetsu is going to be there. This is the only way that you can generate an additional attack until we get the grade 2 support card, and then Bubetsu's spot might be iffy, because at that point it'll be a resource game. But as of right now, Bubetsu's needed to get your 4th attack. This is how you do it, and if you do get the Soul to do the draw, you have that as well. And for my next grade 1, I am playing 2 copies of Demonic Path Autocrat Visargo. Now Visargo is our grade 3 searcher. You can discard Visargo and put 2 cards from your Riot deck face up to look at the top 7 and add grade 3 from that. That is huge because since it lets you add any grade 3 from the top 7, you can add your orders, grade 3 rearguard support pieces, anything of that nature that you can find from Visargo. It also has a defensive skill, which obviously is huge for a deck like this, because since we don't have a lot of ways of getting extra shield or a lot of card advantage, all of our best defensive pieces that we can get a hold of are incredibly important. This one searches out key pieces from the top 7, which you'll always hit at least one thing, and then on top of that, it's an extra defensive unit. Just like Exaggerate Draco Kid, this is a really big deal for the deck, same thing as Teskar, in boosting your card advantage both defensively and on your own turn for offensive reasons. And for my orders of the deck, they have not changed, so I'm just going to showcase them both. 2 copies of Baphormedes Surrogate and then 2 copies of Cage of Furious Star. The orders will always be the same. They're never going to change in this deck until we get stronger grade 3 generic support, anything I can call it from the soul that actually benefits the deck. So Cage of Furious Star obviously has been in here, so that this way you can get those grade 3s back on the board. It's a grade 3 order that you can soul charge in later from drop zone. Baphormedes Surrogate, because it searches your deck for 2 grade 3s, way too good to pass up on. It's always going to be the same in every Baphormedes deck that you see. And now for my trigger lineup. So my trigger lineup has pretty much stayed the same since my last take on this deck. You're using 4 generic crits, 4 effect crits. You're playing 3 draw triggers, the 1 copy of the yellow over trigger, and then 4 generic heal triggers. Now the biggest change to come for this deck for everybody is probably the yellow OT, and the reason why I'm playing this is strictly for the card advantage bump. If you hit the yellow OT, you get to draw, from my experience, 3 cards, and then you remove this from the game, so it's 4 cards. A 4-card draw in a deck with no card advantage is huge. It gives you insane power, it helps you draw cards. It's way too good to pass up on. The only other OT I actually like for a deck like this is the purple OT, because it reduces damage and give you additional attack or another card to your hand, which is huge because Baphormedes is a deck that does need time to set up, so you have to play a resourceful OT that does something for your card advantage. Eidos Pharaoh wasn't good enough, and on top of that, the red OT was okay because it gave you the draw and you're always going to take advantage of the draw effect to call something, but between the purple OT and this one, it was just way better to play the yellow OT. It clears out the board too, which is also a big aspect in slowing your opponent down, because once again, this format, a lot of decks just aren't used to playing against heavy control outside of Sagra. Therefore, the yellow OT being able to give you additional draw and clear out the board gives Baphormedes more time to set up, a huge card advantage bump, as well as obviously the incredible power of the overtrigger itself. Now that's all for my current take on Baphormedes, you guys. Tell me what you guys think about this deck in the comment section below, and let's get a conversation started. My final thoughts on this deck is the fact until we get the new grade 2 support, Baphormedes is still one of the lower tier decks. Unfortunately, Dark States just doesn't have the good generic grade 3 support to really get this deck going or working whatsoever, and there's no really strong card advantage grade 3 that we have that can boost Baphormedes in that sense. So until we get the new wave of support, as well as something strong, generically speaking, for Dark States grade 3s, this deck unfortunately will always be like an F tier deck to play. It's still fun, you can definitely cheese out some wins. Hitting the yellow OT in this deck feels incredibly good. It's definitely when the deck is on the better end. A lot of people don't know what it does, so you can definitely cheese out some games against other lower tier F tier decks, but as of right now, that's just where it's at. It's a fun deck to play, but don't expect to really see much success out of this outside of your local scene. And with that being said, I'll see you later, card fighters. Peace.